Lauri Markkanen has been one of the most improved players in the NBA over the last 2 years. Once seen as a draft disappointment, it looked for a long time like Markkanen would never fulfill his potential. The 7-footer is now one of the most versatile stars in the league who is incredibly difficult to stop. All of a sudden, Markkanen is one of the most desirable players in the league, with a lot of teams interested in the finished 7-footer. So let's take a look at Lauri Markkanen's impressive ascent to stardom and where he could possibly be going next. European players have a very good history in the NBA. Guys like Dirk Nowitzki and the Gasol brothers have inspired a new generation of NBA players from Europe. So when 7-footer Lauri Markkanen agreed to play college basketball for Arizona, a lot of people took notice. He was able to show off his brilliant scoring and rebounding on his way to being named first-team All-Pac-12. A third-team All-American, Markkanen surprised a few people by announcing his intention to forego his final 3 years of eligibility and enter the 2017 NBA Draft.
With the 7th pick in the 2017 NBA Draft, the Minnesota Timberwolves select Lauri Markkanen from Jyväskylä, Finland, and the University of Arizona.
In a draft class filled with future All-Stars in Donovan Mitchell, Jason Tatum, and De'Aaron Fox, Markkanen was expected to be taken just outside of the top 10. While he had all of the measurables to be a brilliant player, he was still seen as a risky prospect to take a look at. NBA teams will be weary of 7-foot Europeans as they have been very hit or miss in the draft. Having originally been picked 7th by the Minnesota Timberwolves, Markkanen was traded on draft night to the Chicago Bulls as part of the deal for Jimmy Butler. Chicago was an interesting team for Markkanen to end up with. Chicago were definitely in a rebuilding phase, having traded away their star Jimmy Butler on draft day. Markkanen was going to be a starter from day one, and so was always going to get a lot of opportunities to improve and impress. Considering he was thrown in the deep end with a struggling Bulls team, Markkanen started off his NBA career pretty well. The 7th overall pick averaged 15.2 points per game in his first season, which jumped to 18.7 in year 2. His sophomore season was particularly impressive. Markkanen was a double-double machine, averaging 19 and 9 per game throughout that second season. He bounced back massively well from an injury that kept him out of the first 23 games of the season. It looked as though Markkanen was ready to take the jump forward to All-Star level. He began his 3rd season in the league with an incredible 35-point, 17-rebound performance. But all of his major numbers would fall in season 3, and Markkanen eventually lost his starting place in Chicago. By 2021, it looked like the Bulls and their former 7th overall pick would be heading in separate directions. Chicago had a big decision to make, as the Finnish big man would become a restricted free agent. Instead of deciding to re-sign him, the Bulls allowed Markkanen to agree to a sign and trade that would send him to the Cleveland Cavaliers. His role would be different from the Cavaliers, starting as small forward alongside Jared Allen and Evan Mobley. But it was not the career resurgence that Markkanen wanted. After that single season with the Cavs, Markkanen was part of the deal that sent Donovan Mitchell to the Utah Jazz. It was a slightly disappointing move from Markkanen, as many people expected the Jazz to be pretty awful as they were in full-on rebuilding mode. Well, apparently no one told Markkanen that the Jazz were supposed to be bad. To the surprise of almost everyone, Markkanen took a huge step forward in the 2022-23 season. He put up career highs in almost every major metric. Averaging 25.6 points per game while shooting a career high from the field is incredibly impressive from Markkanen. He became an All-Star for the first time and beat some stiff competition to win NBA Most Improved Player. While the Jazz were not good enough to reach the playoffs, they had certainly found a new star in Markkanen. His versatility was shown by becoming the first player in NBA history to convert 200 three-pointers and 100 dunks in the same season. Injuries to other key players is what kept the Jazz out of contention despite the best efforts of the Finnish superstar. So there was hope that the Jazz could be in the playoffs this season. This season has not completely gone to plan for Markkanen and the Jazz. Currently sitting just below 500, Utah have been able to bounce back from a very poor start to the season. At one point, the Jazz were 10-18, but went 10-6 in January to pull back into the playoff picture. Lauri himself has seen his numbers drop slightly from a year ago. While he is shooting an impressive 50% from the field and 41% from the three-point line, Markkanen is putting up fewer points per game than last year. That could be as a result of his minutes being managed slightly more. The Jazz will be aware that when you reach 7 feet tall, injuries seem to become slightly more common. Markkanen has already missed 10 games this season, with 8 of them coming due to a hamstring injury. Despite that time missed, Markkanen has still looked like the best player on the Jazz roster. This is why you might be shocked to hear that his name was brought up a lot prior to the trade deadline. Having signed a pretty team-friendly deal with the Cleveland Cavaliers in 2021, Markkanen is looking at becoming a free agent in the 2025 offseason. The Jazz have been trying to work out a new contract with their superstar, but after seemingly being off the market, his name started appearing in trade rumors in December last year. The rumors are not that surprising when you consider the amount of interest that he will be getting around the league. Markkanen is just 26 years old, and yet he can create his own shot and is a very reliable finisher. Few guys at 7 feet tall are as smooth to watch as Lauri. He is one of the best big men three-point shooters in the league. It is surprising that the Jazz wanted to get rid of him, considering he would be their franchise player for the next decade. But considering how valuable of an asset he could be, maybe the Jazz have to listen to offers. The trade deadline came and went without a deal being made for the Jazz forward. He will remain in Utah at least for the rest of the season and is focused on getting the Jazz into the playoffs for the first time since they lost in the first round to the Dallas Mavericks in 2022. While Utah now seem committed to building around Markkanen, that doesn't mean that he should be set on staying with the Jazz. For one thing, a supporting cast of Jordan Clarkson, Colin Sexton, and John Collins is not enough to win a title. If Markkanen wants to take advantage of the talent he has at such a young age, then maybe a trade is not a bad idea. Utah would need to make some big moves to be able to contend with teams in the West like the Nuggets, Suns, and Clippers. There are a few teams that stand out for Markkanen. One of the more fun trades would see Markkanen head to OKC to join their extremely exciting young core of superstars. A big three of Chet, Lauri, and Shea would be dangerous for a decade in the West. That has certainly got to be a team to watch out for. Markkanen has been linked with joining the Atlanta Hawks. Trae Young has desperately been looking for a co-star to help make the Hawks a contender in the East. Atlanta will want someone who can space the floor and still pick up the rebounds when needed. If they can offload some contracts, then Atlanta might have the cap space to make a move for Markkanen. The Golden State Warriors have also been linked, but they need to clear a lot of cap space for a chance at the finished superstar. Now, if the Warriors decide to move on from Draymond, then Lauri could be a brilliant replacement. The Philadelphia 76ers are the other team linked to Markkanen, which seems like the perfect fit. For the Sixers, it would take some scoring pressure off of Joel Embiid, with Markkanen profiling similarly to Tobias Harris, who has been very good for Philly. For Markkanen, it would give him the chance to compete for an NBA title with the reigning MVP. This has got to be an exciting opportunity for Markkanen, as he looks to be one of the best young players in the NBA. Where do you think Lauri Markkanen could go next? Put your thoughts in the comments down below, and while you're down there, hit that like button and subscribe. Thank you for watching, y'all, and we will see you next time.